Everything you need to know before building an ADU. Hello, everybody. My name is Roxanne Govari with Pemberley Realty here in San Diego, California, along with my partner, Santiago Guerin.
Hello, everyone. Looking forward to talking more on ADUs. Got a wealth of knowledge here, Roxanne. I know you've seen and done ADUs yourself, so you can have some good pointers for everyone.
So, ADUs have become the hottest trend in San Diego real estate.
Yeah.
Um, from from anybody that is buying a property to anybody that owns a property to anyone that is thinking of investing, everybody's thinking ADUs, and there are multiple reasons for that because ADUs in if you know what you're doing, ADUs can be cheaper than purchasing a brand new place,
Hmm.
and also they can allow a lot of different things to happen. For example, you can age in place. If you are building an ADU, you can allow for generational living. You can with such expensive, unaffordable real estate that we have in San Diego, you can accommodate your extended family. You can accommodate your kids. So there's a lot of good that comes out of building an ADU or going the ADU route. But what is an ADU, Santi?
Yeah. Uh, I mean, in my knowledge, an ADU is, an additional building that you have. It could be in front. I mean, now there's a lot of new ways of doing ADUs, like converting garages,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Then, I
Yeah.
mean, in the backyard, um, uh, that they can, like you mentioned, serve as a home for family. Or what
Hmm.
about renting an ADU?
So that is also another option to basically turn it into a house hacking option.
Yeah.
ADU itself stands for accessory dwelling unit, basically meaning that you already have a main house and then you're building another structure, and that's an accessory to the main structure that you already have. So that's why it's called an ADU or accessory dwelling unit, meaning that it's not the main unit that's being built.
Yeah.
That being the case, now talking about house hacking is basically when you get another way to supplement your income and pay for your mortgage, and that would be house hacking. And so, if you build an ADU and you rent out that ADU, then somebody else is helping you pay the mortgage, and that's how you get to house hack,
Yes.
basically.
I see. I
So
see. How difficult is it to get permits and all these things for the ADU? Because you can't just, DIY build it yourself, right? You need to go through getting permits for it. How
mhm.
difficult is that? Because I mean, some people think, oh, let me just build a, shed in the back or something and call it an ADU. Uh, it's not that easy, right?
Well, I mean, lots of people put in lots of stuff
Yeah,
without permits, right?
yeah.
It's not the most advisable solution for many reasons, because if you're building a structure without permits, then that structure has no value.
Hmm.
Not only it doesn't have value, but it becomes a liability. In other
Yeah,
words, once you start looking into it, and let's say you want to turn around and sell that property, now the lender is going to look into permits, the buyer is going to look into permits. You didn't pull out permits, then rather than actually having a value of an additional structure, you're having a liability because you can't get a loan, and the buyer is going to question where the permits. If you try to, at that point late in the game, try to pull permits, now it's going to cost you more money. So there it becomes more complicated If you take the time and actually apply for permits right from the get go, not only you do things the right way and you get the city involved, but
Mhm.
also get the experts' eyes on there so that they make sure that your contractor is doing the work right. So overall, it's a better way to go because you realize the value and you don't get in trouble and you
Yeah.
ensure that the place is financeable.
Yeah. That was kind of was gonna be my follow-up question is like, how can it affect the sale of a home? Or like when you're buying a home and that has an ADU that has no permits, how does that affect the buyer or the seller? Will
Right.
they have to pay more, to go and then get those permits later on? What if they don't get approved? It could make things a lot more complicated.
It could make things a lot more complicated. And when you are going to sell, you want to realize that you want to cash out, you want to pull out your cash out of that property as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
And at that time, at that point in time, you don't want to have restrictions of, oh, the lender requires you to pull permits, and because that could take months, that could take years, and you
Hmm.
need your cash out of the property within 10, 20, 30 days, not longer than that. So that
Yeah.
being the case, it creates a significant burden basically for the seller if the permits are not pulled properly.
Yeah. And what can you say is like a time frame to get back from the city for permits or just, from start to finish on building an ADU? I mean, I know there can be different sizes and different, but what's kind of like the idea that you have on that length?
Well, it used to be that permits would take about a year or a year and a half to pull permits to actually, get the permits approved.
Hmm.
Then, uh, then the city came up with speed up process. So now the speed up process for the ADUs. And the speed up process for ADUs was supposed to actually streamline the process and get it to be faster. Now, what we have actually gone into, it seems like the ADUs are actually taking about a year or a year and a half, and actual construction is taking about 2 to 3 years. So unfortunately, I would say that streamlined process hasn't actually materialized.
Yeah.
But that being said, I must say that not all the blame falls on the city of San Diego. Some of that blame falls onto our wonderful SDG&E because sometimes you go and you pull permits and you actually get the permits to get the permits fairly quickly. But
Yeah.
then what happens if you have to also upgrade utilities? What happens if you have to upgrade your water line? What happens if you have to upgrade your gas and electric line? And those have a timeline on separate from your actual permits. So now you're waiting a year here for your permit, and you have to wait another 3 months here for your uh, utilities to be upgraded. So you know um, the gist of the matter is, despite the fact that you think that ADUs are going to be streamlined and it's going to be easier to build, at the end of the day you're dealing with construction. At the end of the day you're adding another structure, and there are multiple layers to building a structure. And so if you want to do things right, you have to account for all the complications that are involved and account in the timing of it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of things that, take into play when you're doing an ADU.
A lot of things, but like we talked about, why would you even go through the trouble? Well, there's many reasons, right? You're getting rental income. getting to house your aging parents, which could be very attractive. You get to house your adult children, which could be very attractive. You may need a home office, and you know you'd and that's the cheapest way to actually build a home office, or you know, add to your living space. So
And add
all
more
of these
value. Add more value to your home.
add value, absolutely.
Mhm.
And but again, you're talking about, let's talk about cost, right? You have to pay for architectural plans. You have to pay for structural engineering plans. You need to get the city permits. You need to get utilities built. You need to be looking and paying for preparing the site, the construction, the interior finishes, the unexpected costs that may come up, landscaping. So there's a lot of costs that you don't actually think about originally, that they creep up on you. And here's another thing about, I would say a lot of the contractors that have gone into that business of ADUs don't actually give you the full picture. You know, they may come in and say, okay, this is how much the ADU is going to cost, but what they fail to actually tell you is all these other ancillaries, you know, the engineering costs, the utility upgrade costs, the landscaping costs. So and these things can creep up on you and become very expensive very quickly. So
Yeah.
it definitely pays to look at the whole picture before you make a decision like that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, do you actually can you actually build an ADU on the property that you want? So you know, some of the things that play into it: the lot size. Do you have enough room? Right. Existing structures. Can you use existing structures? For example, you said
The garage.
there's a lot of people that are using garages in order to turn it into ADUs.
Parking
Now,
situation too. I
hmm?
mean, if you're gonna parking situation too. I mean,
Oh, parking.
if you're gonna have the garage be converted, do you have street parking to be able to do that? Or if you're gonna have tenants, where are they gonna be able to park? So it takes a lot of thinking.
And you know, that's the thing. I remember a couple of years ago there was an investor meeting that I went to, and and everybody started going through and showing off all these ADU projects that they had, and um, and the first question that came to my mind was parking. That, okay, well, you know, I'm looking at this from the point of view of the realtor. Once you want to actually sell these things, parking becomes very important. Parking becomes a very desirable option. And I would even argue that it's not really an option, it's a necessity.
Yeah.
We're living in California, we're living in Southern California, and as much as we like to say, okay, we're going to go the route of using public transportation, but still we're in Southern California. We need to at least, we like to have our cars. We like to have the option of having our cars, and it plays into the quality of life that we enjoy. And cars are part of that. Another, you're younger and I'm older, so uh, I'm going to tell you another argument or thought process that came up. I went to another meeting one time, and it was a meeting for cyclists, and I brought up the issue of parking, and they were saying, well, you know,
Use your bike.
uh, San Diego, yeah, use your bike, and using your bike is fine and dandy, right? But using your bike is fine and dandy if you're in your 20s, if you're in your 30s, if you're in your 50s. But what if you're in your 70s or 80s,
Yeah.
right? if you're in your 70s and 80s, you still are most likely still driving, but most likely you're not going to be biking.
Yeah.
And that independence all throughout life is important to everybody. So if you're taking that away by taking the parking away, then how does that
Yeah.
work?
I agree. I agree.
So ADUs and parking, if they mesh together well, great. If parking is not calculated into that consideration, then it can create problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about designing ADUs, because that's the part that actually becomes fun, right?
Yeah.
So designing ADUs, floor plans are super important, right?
Hmm.
Natural light is super important because a dark space gets to be smaller, and ADUs by design they're smaller. So if they're dark, then they're going to look that much smaller as a
Hmm.
result,
Yeah.
right? Um, Another thing that's really important is privacy between the main house and the ADU.
Yeah.
Um, if you look at it, in the metro area of San Diego, that we have multi units, which are kind of, you know, are older version of ADUs being built into the home. They were designed that way and built that way.
Yeah.
Um, and but if you look at it, some of the times multi units are actually fetching less in value than single family homes.
Yeah.
And this is something that also um, becomes an issue with the ADUs as well. Somebody comes in and spends $300,000 building an ADU, but then they're not able to recover that $300,000 when they want to sell, because a somebody that doesn't want that ADU may not be willing to pay for it
Yeah.
unless you create so much privacy between the two, so that the main house still enjoys its privacy, and people are actually willing to pay top
Yeah.
dollar for the main house and get the ADU as a bonus, but not if it actually encroaches on the privacy and lifestyle of the main house.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I think some people could be a little bit, they don't want someone walking in through their, you know, driveway or, walkway. And so definitely important. Especially if there's
Years
no parking,
ago,
they're gonna have to park somewhere on the
oh,
street and walk over.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Years ago, we built an ADU into our property, and we built it as basically a guest house for, when we had out of town guests coming to visit. So we built it as a guest house, and everyone that would come and go, our guests that would come and go would say, um, so your guests are gone, are you going to rent it? And I was thinking, no way, I would never want to have a tenant come through and go through my backyard and go through my front yard and basically share the same space with my main house as I'm raising my kids. I would never want that.
Yeah. Mhm.
So there goes your
A
concern
potential
of.
buyer, someone that.
Exactly.
Mhm. Yeah.
Exactly. So we kind of addressed, will an ADU increase your home's value? We kind of addressed that, right? Sometimes it may, sometimes it may not, depending on how you build it, depending on how much privacy you give to the main house, depending on how the construction quality looks like. All of these are things that matter to whether or not you actually produce value for the ADU that you bring in.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, let's talk about the rental income of it, right? Because sometimes you may not get the value, but you make that property more affordable.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, for example, I'll give you an example. You may pay $1 million for a single family home, right? Or you may pay $1 million for a home that has an ADU, and that home with the ADU may not actually fetch more money, may actually sell for the same price of $1 million, but then to the buyer that wants that lifestyle, then it actually creates that house hacking that we mentioned
Yeah.
right in the beginning,
Yeah.
right?
Definitely.
In other words, it gives you a more affordability. So down the line, it may not bring the seller more value, but it will bring the buyer more value.
Hmm. Yeah.
So um, let's see. Is building an ADU better than selling? What do you think?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think it could be both ways. I think sometimes selling might just be the easier route without having to go through construction permits, like you mentioned. You're looking at a long, timeline. But depending on how much value or how that ADU is going to be built, then it could potentially maybe be a good option. But or like
Hmm.
if you're looking to sell 3 years down the line, 4 years, then maybe building it does work, and then you want to downgrade once you're, let's say you have your kids living at home now and they're going out, for college in 4 years, then maybe, right now you built the ADU and then 5 years down the line you sell the property. I mean, that's kind of how I see it, but
Yeah,
it can be either or because you can maybe build an ADU that doesn't bring that much value and then you just wasted all this money and, you know,
yeah,
done.
yeah. And the other thing that I'm thinking is location, 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 right?
Hmm.
If the location of the property is the location that you want to be in, then okay, adding an ADU basically, enhances your lifestyle, gives you more options, gives you more bandwidth. So it does make sense to build rather than move. But if the location is still, at the end of the day, if the location is not where you want to be in the long run, then does it make sense to build? I mean, go through all that trouble and still be in a location that you don't want to be. In that case, then it makes more sense to actually move. So it's
And
that it's that concept of HGTV's love it or list it. You
uh-huh.
can build and you still end up somewhere where you don't want to be. Well, then but
Yeah.
if you love the location and you want to be in that neighborhood, then there you go. It makes a lot more sense.
What about what about the idea of like building an ADU and selling it like separate from your home? Like I've heard people say it out there. Is that something? Because I've heard that like people saying that a million times. Is that even possible? Like you would have to split the lot, like you know.
The city of San Diego, to my knowledge, still does not allow that to be an option.
Hmm.
If that ever becomes an option, then yes, that's a good way to increase your income and basically build another unit, separate the two, and sell them off as individual units. That would probably bring more money. But to my knowledge, City of San Diego does not allow that to
Yeah,
be an option as of right now. So if it ever changes, then ADUs remain to be super popular.
yeah,
So all right, so this is a great discussion. I love this because I also naturally love construction. So I really enjoy that. Um, and so, and I've done multiple projects, ADUs and otherwise. So audience, if you have any questions about building or about ADUs or about selling or any of that in between, we are here and love to help you. There is my phone number, and if you want to reach out to Santiago, there's his phone number. You can also reach out to us on Instagram. We love a follow on Instagram or on Facebook. And of course, you can reach us through our website as well. We are always happy to see you one way or another. And if you watch this on YouTube, Santi, what do you want them to do?
Hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe so you guys can see all our videos and see all our guests that we bring in, all these topics that we talk about, just so you guys can be in the loop.
Absolutely. And there you have it. Thank you so much for joining us and make it a great day, everybody.
Bye, everyone.